today. We'll be starting very shortly. We're just going to let people have a little bit more time to join, and we'll be back in a moment. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kathleen O'Donnell Pickard. I'm an occupational therapist and certified hand therapist here at Spear. I'd like to welcome back all of you who have attended our other webinars, as well as welcome those who are joining us for the first time. We appreciate you taking time out of your busy days to learn with us. For those of you who do not know who we are, Spear is a private outpatient practice that has been around for over 20 years. We currently have 21 locations located all over the New York City area. We have successfully continued to offer in-person care through the COVID-19 pandemic, along with launching Spear Live for those who are looking to stay in and receive care using telehealth platforms from the comfort of your own home. In our clinics, we're strategically going above and beyond the CDC guidelines to ensure the safety and well-being of everyone. You can find more detailed information on those safety measures by visiting our website at spearcenter.com. We're here for you in whichever way makes you feel comfortable. If you're looking for individualized care either in the clinic or through telehealth, please reach out. At your earliest convenience, we can get you set up for an appointment right away. So we're excited to be with you today to discuss exercise prescription with regards to frequency, goals, and types of exercise. We'll talk about how to begin thinking about exercise based on age and activity level, and we'll be delving into how to go about prescribing exercises to meet specific goals. So as you can see, we are coming to you live from our own homes and clinics. Although we do not anticipate any technical issues today, please be patient with us should any arise as we navigate working through technology. A few housekeeping things throughout the webinar. We want to hear from you. If you have any questions, please feel free to let us know your thoughts in the Q&A feature. To find where that is, take a moment and hover your mouse at the bottom of your screen, and you'll see a Q&A option pop up. That's where we want you to put the questions. We'll do our best to address as many of them as we can during the webinar, but it's best to put the questions in the Q&A. If you put the questions in the chat feature, we may not get to see them. So for those of you watching through YouTube Live, we're monitoring the comment section as well. So feel free to type those questions in. And then lastly, there will be times where multiple panelists are on the screen. So for the best viewing experience, please select Gallery View at the top right corner of your Zoom screen, so you'll be able to see multiple panelists at one time. All right, so let's talk a little bit about our goals for the day and what we'll be covering. So we're going to start by understanding what everyone needs to meet the right amount of exercise, understanding the importance of different exercises, understanding how to prescribe how much of an exercise to do, debunking common myths and misconceptions, as well as determining what type of exercise you should do. Before we get started, I'd like to introduce you to our team of panelists. We're going to welcome everyone onto the screen now. So we have our presenters for today, Eric Finkelstein, who is a physical therapist at our West 75th location, and Michelle Dearwater, also a physical therapist, as well as our clinical director at our West 75th Street location. And then we have Joseph Lacerdo, who is a physical therapist and clinical director at our East 84th Street location. He's going to be helping us out with the Q&A today. So again, just to remind everyone, it's best to be in gallery view so you can see everyone at the same time. If you've done that, you should be able to see all four of us right now. And then we can get started. So Michelle, Joe, and I are going to say goodbye for now. And Eric, you can take it away.
All right. So let's get the slides up. All right. So I wanted to start off by just breaking down what the general exercise guidelines were for broken down by age. So this first group is going to be the 18 to 65 crowd. So the CDC and the ACSM, so the American College of Sport Medicine, recommends we do 150 minutes of aerobic exercise every day, every week, and 2 days of strengthening every week. Now, this is a general guideline for a reason. People with underlying conditions, difficulty with mobility, or potentially having other barriers to physical activity are going to have a hard time hitting all those numbers. But what's important is if you haven't done it, or if you struggle to reach that you just make an effort to try and do it, and that you're purposeful and you try to have fun with it. And we'll have a little bit more on that later. So the recommendation is 150 minutes of aerobic activity. And that's, again, cumulative over the week. So you could break that down into 5 times for 30 minutes, 3 times for 50 minutes. I don't know if anyone wants to go for 150 minutes in one day, but if you really want to, you certainly can. But the point of the aerobic activity is to get your heart rate going at a good clip, but not to the point of exhaustion. So some examples of this would be going for a brisk walk or a jog, depending on your level of activity, dancing, Zumba, water aerobics, doubles, tennis, something that gets your heart going, but that's manageable, and it's something that you like to do. Now, in addition to this, you want to have 2 days of strengthening. So in your strength program, you want to incorporate all major muscle groups. And something that we want to provide towards the end at the end of the webinar is a handout that breaks down some of the larger muscle groups that you can focus on in your own strengthening program. Now, if we go to the next slide, you'll see the guidelines for the 65 plus crowd, and it's pretty much the same. Believe it or not, the intensity of the activity will vary though. So if you maybe, instead of running or jogging, you're going for a brisk walk. Instead of going swimming laps in the pool, you're walking laps in the shallow end. There's variability in the intensity, but you still want to hit the same numbers. In addition to the previous guidelines of in the younger crowd, which was 150 minutes and 2 times strengthening, you also want balanced activities. So Michelle and I thought it'd be a good idea to demonstrate some of these for you so that you can safely do these in your home and add them into any regimen that you like. So I'm going to invite Michelle onto the screen. And I'm going to go demonstrate while she talks you through it.
Thanks, Eric. Perfect. And while Eric gets that set up, great. Perfect. So we'd like to demonstrate, as Eric said, some balance exercises that can be incorporated into any exercise program. These exercises will start simple and really progress in intensity and difficulty. Ideally, you'd want to do an exercise that is challenging to perform while maintaining safety. That's very important. For those of you that are apprehensive about falling but still want to challenge themselves, we really recommend the following setup, which is get yourself in the corner as Eric is there. We're not going to show it here, but you can place a chair right in front of yourself. Oh yeah, I mean, not a rolling one, but something that's sturdy that you can grab onto if you need to. And each exercise will be successive in difficulty by decreasing your base of, the exercise that we're going to show you basically are going to vary by either decreasing your base of support, making it smaller on the ground, or performing a task with the eyes closed. So Eric, let's start off with you just as you are now, bringing your feet closer together. This is what is allowing you to shorten or basically decrease or narrow your base of support. Get a sense of how that feels. Do you feel yourself like swaying? Do you have any postural sway? And if that feels okay, the next step you can take is really to close your eyes. Yeah. Now take a minute to really feel how that is. You can even notice that he's swaying a little bit. This is challenging your balance here. As long as you feel safe, you have the walls next to you. And that's why we really recommend doing it in this way. If you had the chair in front of it, you could hover over to feel like, make sure that you know, in case you need to catch yourself. But adding the eyes closed makes it harder, but it can also mimic walking in the dark at night, especially if you're trying not to turn off the light to wake your partner. So all of these things are very functional balance activities that you can just practice in your own home. Next, we're going to try what's called a tandem stance, and that's just one foot in front of the other. Again, this is narrowing the base of support, but in a different way. It's like walking on a tightrope. Continue again to kind of feel if you have that natural sway. Again, you can hover your chair over if you need to. And then you'd want to try and make sure that you feel comfortable in this position before you try and close your eyes. And Eric's looking good there, so go ahead and close your eyes and see how that feels. Good job with that. And again, making, you know, obviously closing your eyes makes it more difficult, but really just make sure that your safety is the most important thing when challenging yourself here. Now, the last position that we're going to attempt is going on one leg. Now, before progressing to this one, or just each stage in general, you just want to make sure that you can maintain any one position for 30 seconds without losing your balance or using your hands before you progress. Good job, Eric. Really like that. Now, the two more variables that will add challenge to the balance, one is the surface. So he's on a flat surface right now, but we can modify that and change that by adding just foam. You could use a pillow or couch cushion, anything from your home, but again, that's gonna it's gonna make you obviously challenge your body a lot more with that. You can even close your eyes, but that's very difficult. And as you can see, Eric's doing a good job of that. To make it even more, sorry, let me just see where I was. Okay, so one last thing that you can do even while we're in a position like this is make it even challenging, which is a partnered task. So tossing a ball back and forth, just like this. Eric does this a lot with his patients. They love it in the clinic, but it makes your, you know, body really have to go outside. We'll do one harder, one over there. Oh, just kidding. Sorry about that. Nice job, Eric. So those are just some simple ways that you can really have some fun with your balance at home, and remember safety first. I'm going to have Eric, thank you, Eric, take us back through our discussion on strength and power, and then we'll also have a demonstration for that.
Okay. Yeah, so you should be able to see the slides here. And let me just get into the right slide. All right. So if you've been at a Spear location, had physical therapy, or had been in the gym, you probably have heard the phrase "do 3 sets of 10," and it is a good number and baseline to have, but it is not necessarily the optimal depending on what your goals are. So what I want to do in the next slide, it's going to be a little bit of a busy graph, but I want to try and talk through it to explain why 3 sets of 10 is a good number, but where you can play around with the numbers a little bit on the repetitions. So on the bottom of the graph, whether you can see the numbers well or not, it goes increasing in the amount of repetitions you're doing. So on the left side, you have 1 to 3 repetitions, and on the right side, you have 15 plus repetitions. So and then you have the depiction of whether or not you're focusing on strength, power, hypertrophy, or muscle endurance. So I'll break down the left side of the graph first, because and then I'll work my way to the right. So when you're working in the 1 to 6 repetition range, that means you're focusing predominantly on your strength and power. Now, it's important to know that if you're in this range, you want to make sure that the weight is challenging enough so that 6 repetitions makes you tired. So you'll have to do a little bit more weight if you want to work in this range for it to be as effective. So that would be, so for example, if you were to pick up a weight and try and lift it, and you were only, let's say 30 pounds, and you can only lift it 5 times, then that would be your 5 repetition max, and that would fit in the strength and power category. So if you wanted to work on your strength and power, you would do 5 reps of 30 pounds. And we can go over this in the question and answer if this is confusing at all. Now to the middle of the graph, which is sort of that 6 to 12 repetition range, you have the word hypertrophy. And that's just another word for muscle growth. And this is kind of where we sit often in our clinic, which is that 3 sets of 10, and that's ideal for building muscle. So if you want to, if that's what you want to work on, that's typically where you'll be. Now, if you go to the 12 plus or 15 plus repetitions, then you're focusing more on muscle endurance. And you could see with the graph, the larger the text, the more focus or the more optimal it is for that goal. It's important to note that in each rep range, you still are working on the other components. So if you are doing 10 repetitions and doing 3 sets, you're going to hit every single component. You're going to improve your strength. You're going to improve your power. You're going to build muscle, and you're going to build your endurance. The idea is just, if you want to hit different parts more optimally, then that's just how you would do it. So in expanding on this, I want to just bring across the idea that it's important to try and incorporate both or a wide variety of types of exercises. So like I said before, the 3 sets of 10 will improve your strength and power, but if you want to optimize that, it's a good idea. And for this reason, I bring up these statistics on what happens to the average individual's strength and power as they age. So there was a study that looked at individuals from who were 30 and then when they were 80, and they tested their strength, which is expected to decrease, but it was by a large margin. So men lost 34% of their strength, women 32%, and then power 42% for men and 46% for women. So it's important to make this note, because while a lot of people while we were touting strength as being important, we want to bring power into the mix, and we'll get into that in terms of a demonstration on how to incorporate that. But power is, so to break down the two, strength is the amount of force you can apply, and then power is the amount of force you can apply quickly. So for this reason, power, especially for older adults, is pretty important, because if you can move your limbs quicker and faster and stronger, you'll be able to react quicker. And if for any reason you trip, you stumble, you might be able to catch yourself a little bit easier and before you fall. So what we would like to do next is, I'm going to bring Michelle back onto the screen, and I'm going to go and demonstrate some of these strength and power exercises.
Awesome. Thank you, Eric. Thank you for being our demonstrator today. We'll just get the computer set up. Yeah, and so as Eric said, we're going to incorporate how these principles of strength and power and endurance to any exercise. First, we're going to do a squat or sit to stand. Here, Eric is demonstrating a squat using a chair behind him as a cue to really know how low to go. This is a good, going to 90 degrees of like your hip angle and knee is a very important goal to reach if you can obtain that. For someone who's starting out, just starting to exercise, you can fully sit down in between the reps. You can, have it be a little bit higher. Since Eric is relatively fit, he could probably be close to doing 20 of these. Therefore, the exercise is working predominantly on his endurance. In order to make this optimal for him to build strength, he'd want to add weight enough so that he can only do 10 reps. So he's got the 50-pound kettlebell here, just showing that this is primarily working on strength in this way by adding weight. Now for power, he can utilize the slightly lighter weight or no weight and simply perform the elevation portion of this exercise more quickly and more explosive, as you see here. He also can lower down slowly to really maximize the work being done in his muscles. This is called an eccentric exercise, and standing up fast in order to produce that power. Once you feel comfortable here, the next stage is going to be to jump. So perfect, nice jump squat. Jumping is a great way to work on power because it's enough. In order to exert enough force to leave the ground, you have to contract your muscles quickly, and it's not possible to do a jump in that way and leave the ground. It's not possible to do it slowly. So great examples, Eric, of jumping in a squat position. So you can apply this principle to any exercise depending on your goals. We can show it here in a lunge. It's going to move that out of the way, but you can perform the same thing, a lunge, whether you do it with just endurance, whether you do it for strength and adding a weight. And you can also do it with a jump. And this is only before you really add the next stage. You really need to be comfortable with both your form and ability to complete the actual exercise. Perfect. Now it's the last one that we want to do and show you is just going to be the same thing as a push-up, just to have Eric do some more exercise here. We're just going to show you the same thing with a push-up. Again, a plyo push-up just means like your body weight, you're coming down. Okay, there. So body weight, depending on how many you can do for endurance. Strength, you can have somebody jump on you, or you can even do our jumping push-up. But again, you have to make sure that you do this with good form before you reach this stage. But it's not necessary to break down all exercises this way. There's a lot of multi-joint and larger movements that are good ones to consider. For example, like a bicep curl or like a knee extension. We're not asking you to just, and it's not a good idea to just throw your limbs around faster. You really want to be purposeful in the types of exercises that you're doing and the function of it. As Eric said before, it's important to, if you need to, if you stumble and you need to catch yourself really quickly, something like going from like a sit to stand in a forceful way can help you get on your feet faster. And again, if you have any questions about that, we can explain that a little bit more later. Perfect. So what exercises should I do? What we as physical therapists, I think most of us really wind up telling people is find what you like to do and what you do best and what you're gonna do and do that. I know it seems simple, but I'm always telling people, like, if they want to get into something and they know that they don't have access to a pool or they don't have, it's like, well, let's not do that one. Let's do ones that you are really comfortable with. And I think it's also very important to cross train, and that if you have multiple exercises that you like to do, split them up throughout the week and, spread them out so that you can work different muscle groups. Perfect. With that, we have a little poll for you so we can bring that. So what is the best thing to do before working out or before a run? The choices are foam roll or massage, stretching, low intensity of the planned workout, or a light jog. Again, these are all best things to do before a workout or before a run. We'll give you some time to answer the poll, and I'm going to let Eric come back on, kind of go over those answers and take us through one more question as well.
That's fine. All right. I needed a quick drink after that one.
Working on that strength, power, and endurance.
All right, so I'll give it a little more time. All right, so most people picked stretching, but also there were low intensity of the planned workout and then light jog. So We didn't put a correct answer on this one. So any of those would have been fine. The most important thing to do before a workout is to get yourself warm and get your blood pumping, specifically to the area that you really want to work. So if you stretching, for example, since that was a popular choice, if you're going for a run, I wouldn't advocate just going right into it. So if you want to stretch your legs, that's definitely a possibility. If you want to go for a brisk walk before your run, that's also a possibility. You just want to make sure that you gradually build up and you don't just go right into the activity. Another example to use the other choice, which was a low intensity of the exercise. Let's say you're going to the gym and you want to bench press, then it's fine to throw no weight on the bar or a very light weight and do a few reps with that weight before you start to your actual working sets. That's the best way to go about warming up to an exercise. You can do anything, whatever you'd like. There's no real perfect warm up for any specific exercise or routine. With that said, we want to bring up one more poll, similar concept, but let's see what you guys think on this one. What is the best way to prevent injury? So you have stretch, just to stretch the muscles that you're about to work, to run before exercising, to gradually increase exercise load, or to not exercise at all. So we'll give you guys some time to answer these questions. Give it a little bit more time. I'm still huffing and puffing a little bit.
I love it.
I didn't think I was gonna do that many.
I just wanted to see him work. We watch all of our patients work all the time, but
yeah, it's only fair.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So here you have, most people chose either stretch before you're about to work or gradually increase exercise load. So both of those, and then there's one person who picked run before you exercise. So kind of going back to what I said before, optimal warm-up, you can do anything. And it'll prepare you for the activity. The best way to prevent injury was the answer choice to gradually increase your exercise load. And so I want to bring up one more slide to kind of make that point a little bit more. So most injuries stem from doing too much too fast after doing too little for too long. So and again, this is a generalization, but most injuries will happen for your typical weekend warrior, so someone who just goes out and tries to play tackle football with their family after not exercising for a month. Trying to do something that you haven't prepared yourself for. So the most important way to prevent injury, and there are obviously other things you can do. Stretching is definitely helpful, and other means of injury prevention are helpful. But the best thing you can do is to prepare your body for what you're going to put it through. So if you've never run in your life and you sign up for a marathon, you should walk a lot before you go and run. And you should run a lot before you sign up for a marathon. It's important to gradually build up what you're going to do before you try and do it. And that's why I like this quote. So at this time, I want to invite Kathleen back onto the screen, and she's going to help us out with the Q&A form. And Michelle will come back in the screen with me too.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, guys. That was amazing. I'm exhausted just watching. We have a few questions. So thank you, everybody who's participating and asking questions. Feel free to keep them funneling in. We're just going to start with this one question. Michelle and Eric, if you want to just kind of bop back and forth who answers. But the first question is, can you please describe aerobic activities?
Aerobic activity is an activity that gets your heart rate going, gets you breathing more heavily. They get you breathing more heavily, but it's not something that you can't talk through. So I feel like a good metric for a steady state aerobic activity would be something that makes you tired, but that you can still talk through. So if you're someone who's going on a brisk walk, if you can maintain a conversation, you're going at a good pace. If you're someone who's running and sprinting, then you're doing something, not that that's a bad activity, but I would consider that higher than aerobic activity because you're working your body harder.
Amazing, thank you. All right, next question. So you were talking about exercise for people over the age of 75 or of 65 rather. If they're able to do the exercise at the same intensity of somebody under the age of 65, should they really limit themselves, or is it okay to push past kind of that slide of 65 plus?
Yeah, so that's my slide. I'll go one more. So the guidelines are a minimum. So if you're meeting them, that's great. If you're trying to meet them, that's also great. But if you are exceeding them, that's also great. So regardless of your age, you can aim to improve whatever number you want. So if you're 75 and you want to jog 5 miles, not every 25-year-old can do that, but if you can, you certainly should. So it's good to make specific goals. I broke it down into age range because there's an infinite way to break down how much you should exercise, but whatever is specific to you, whatever is difficult for you and a good challenge for you is what you should aim for.
Yeah, and I just have a little disclaimer about that, which I think we're all aware. But if anybody has any pre-existing conditions, heart conditions, anything that they would want to have, like, a follow-up with their doctor about, they should really just check with them too, to make sure that they're not working outside target heart rates and things that are, something that they really should adhere to based on their own personal health. So yeah.
Amazing. All right, next one is, what do you suggest if you have neuropathy and tend to fall over when you try to balance on one leg? If you're, I guess, trying to start those balancing exercises.
Talk a little bit about that. I mean, I think with anything, I think it's great. I mean, I love being able to talk on webinars like this because it's really great to be evaluated by somebody to really see what's safe for you. Especially when you're doing balance exercises. Like, a lot of times I'm very careful with when even the patients that I have and have evaluated, when I give them balance exercises to do at home, I really make sure it's something that I know will be safe for them. But in general, just like when we were going through those balance exercises, something as simple as just narrowing your base of support and making it challenging for you is challenging your balance. And everybody's different. So if you start with that simple, I think somebody was giving an example of standing on one leg, but really try those other ones first. Try, having your feet closer together, tandem stance, one in front of the other, being next to something with your eyes closed, and those progressions before you start trying to, some people are always like, oh, somebody told me to balance on one leg while brushing my teeth. Don't try that until you try the other things to be really safe.
Yeah, and I like the idea that you guys had before of having the chair in front of you, even having like your hands hovering over the chair, like one finger on the chair can kind of set you a little bit more at ease and not feel like you're going to fall. So I liked that modification. All right. So for a senior starting off age 60 plus, how much weight would you suggest kettlebells be, or would you change up between 2 different weights? How would you determine where to start?
I'll go for that one. So the best way to start any exercise, let's start with the ones we demonstrated. We're more focused on your legs. You want to make sure you can move your body weight first. A good metric to know when to add weight is, in our demonstration. So if someone like myself, if I were to do squats without weight, it's not that it won't be effective. It just won't be as effective as it could be. So I would say if you're trying to figure out how much weight to use, start light, especially if you haven't yet, and gradually build up your tolerance. So I don't think I would want you to have options before you tried. So whether you have 5 pounds and then go to 10 pounds, 10 pounds, go to 15 pounds. Just be gradual about adding weight and make sure you can do it without first.
Yeah, and one thing I would add to that too is it's important to know how you really feel from it as well. You might feel fine in the moment and you pack on some weights and then you can't walk the next day. And in that, you really want to make sure that you just if you're starting out, you start out slow, and that's the best and safest way to do it to prevent an injury.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So next question. Are the exercises and the information presented applicable for people who are doing intermittent fasting?
It's a good question. So I don't want to speak out of turn because I know what intermittent fasting is, and I think people have some success. I know anecdotally that can exercise while they're fasting or while they're not. But I don't know enough about the physiology to give a good answer for that. I know that that there's literature and research out there that you can find, but I don't want to speak out of turn on that one.
Same.
I agree. I think honestly, listening to your body is the best thing you can do, right? So that would be my advice in that instance.
Yeah, as Eric was kind of saying, just that there are a lot of people that are fine. Like me personally, if I've ever, fasting or anything like that, it takes a lot of energy out of me and it's hard to work out. But there's certain people who are used to it, their bodies are fine with it. And exactly like you said, listen to your body, I think is the best advice that you can really have. And it's important. I know it is simple, but it's true. Do you feel like so fatigued that you can't do this, or do you feel like you're okay?
Yeah, I feel like people got into the no pain, no gain mindset. And if something doesn't feel right, then you're probably accurate in thinking it doesn't feel right, and maybe take a pause. I think that's.
And I'll add one on top of that is to whatever, even if you feel like you can push yourself through it, exercise routines, diets, or whatever you're doing, they're supposed to be for longevity. So if you feel like you struggle to get through the week's workouts, then you're probably doing something wrong, because there's no way you'll be able to continue to do that in perpetuity. So just make sure what you're doing is sustainable.
Well said.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. All right, so moving on, can you provide some examples of upper body aerobics or cardio workouts for individuals recuperating from knee surgery?
Yeah, I mean, I think depending on the knee surgery, but if you really aren't supposed to be doing obviously too much, either way, there's lots of exercises that you can do from a seated position. Any weight exercise or resistance is going to get your heart rate up and work on some of your strength. So just as simple as having some weights and being in a chair like that, or even resistance bands. But depending on what you're kind of looking for, again, I think what Eric is really great at being very creative with, doing a lot of stuff that is very much not just working a bicep or whatever, but doing very much dynamic types of activities. So I don't know if you can speak on anything that you do, but.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree with what Michelle said. I don't have anything to expand on.
Yeah, I think there's so much you can do. I think exercise bands are the best because they're so versatile, and you can pack them and travel with them. It's the greatest.
Yes, definitely.
All right. So the next question, kind of keeping it in the upper body stuff. What do you suggest for strength training if you have weak wrists?
So it really would depend on if you're saying weak wrists from the perspective of you actually have trouble using your muscles, or weak meaning it hurts to do things. So there are a few ways the best way to go about it would be not to overload your other muscles at the expense of your wrists. So if you can do 25 push-ups, but then your wrists hurt afterwards, then that is probably too much. So you can certainly build the strength in your wrists, but you want to make sure that you're not aggravating anything. So again, I'll go back to being gradual about everything. And if you're doing the activity that you want to do, the strength will come.
Love it. All right, next question. So would you typically do weight-bearing exercises on different days than aerobic activity?
I think it depends on what your goals are, but usually it's nice to break it up into, you said weight, say that question, sorry, one more time.
So would you typically do weight-bearing exercises on different days from doing aerobic activity? So I guess the question is, if you're doing aerobic activity on one day, should you do your weight-bearing exercises on another day and alternate?
Yeah, I just, maybe I'm going to assume maybe on this one that if weight-bearing means strengthening exercises, then I would say you can do either. You can fit, if you, let's say, for example, let's say to get your 150 minutes, you do it 30 minutes for 5 times a week. 2 of those days, you could also do strength exercises. Conversely, on the opposite 2 days, you can do the strength exercises. You can intermingle them. It's, it depends on how much time you have available.
That's the hardest part, is finding the time. Amazing. Thank you. Next question. I don't feel my heart rate increase when walking. It only increases if I break into a jog. In that case, is walking really effective?
It would depend on your goal. So if you're trying to improve your endurance, then walking isn't bad for you. It's not optimal. So if you want to improve that a little bit more, then you should break into a little bit of a jog, because your body is able to do that. So you have to meet, with any exercise, with any level of activity, you have to be able to meet your body's demands and challenge it that way.
Yeah, and I think it's important too. I know, with technology, a lot of us have Apple Watches or odometers or things that monitor our heart rate. I think you'll find, if you're checking yourself regularly, it's definitely something that is going to increase your heart rate. Maybe, as to speak on what Eric said, not as much for your goals, but the purpose of what we were talking about a lot was walking for warm up, or walking as keeping up with part of your routine. And that's an integral part of getting all of the different muscles in your body working, your blood flowing, and all of that is just very functional, very important to keep up with.
Awesome. All right, we got a few more questions here. So this one kind of is similar to one of the questions we had before, but is it bad to do strength training on the same day as you do cardio?
No, it's not. Again, depends on your goal. If your only goal is to get stronger, then you might not have as much energy if you do cardio the same day. But if your goal is just general fitness, then there's no problem with that.
Yeah, and I would just say too, if you've only done strength one day and you're trying to do cardio and strength and you're trying to do the same amount, I would just be careful about not having something that could injure yourself because you think you can do the same. As he said, it can take out part of your energy, your endurance, and that if you want it only for strength, that makes a difference. Injury.
Amazing. Okay, so next question. They're still coming in. I love it. So what is the general rule of thumb for judging if it's time to increase weight? So for instance, if you can do 5 sets of 20 reps, it's probably safe to say that you can increase your weight. What increments do you typically increase? 2.5 or 5 pounds? And when you increase your weight, should you start at 10 reps per set? So we'll break that question down. First, let's just talk about when to know if you should increase your weight and by how much.
Yeah, I think the person in the question did a good job though. They, if you can do 20 repetitions at a weight, then it's probably time to increase it. I think 5 pounds, between, it really depends on what you have available to you. 5 pounds is a good number. If you can do 20, you could probably go up 5 or 10, but it can't hurt to, if you have small increments available to you, it can't hurt to try the next one up, the closest one up, and then give that a try. How many can you do? And then if you can do a lot there, then go ahead. Like I mentioned before in that slide, 3 sets of 10 is a good number, and it's a good ballpark to hit all your goals. But if you get to that 10th rep and you're like, well, I feel like I can do another 10, then you could probably go a little heavier.
Yeah, and one thing I just want to say about that, just because for whatever reason I have a lot of post-op shoulder patients right now. I do a lot of isolated single arm exercises that my patients are blown away. That first I just make them do a body weight and just add 1 pound. That can be significant in that moment, especially something that you're recovering from, like post-surgical. You want to be careful in those moments. But I mean, like your forearm muscles, like part of your shoulder, are a lot smaller than like if you're like doing a double leg squat. So obviously take that into consideration as well.
Yeah, and I think Michelle brings up a good point that the basis of this isn't for like those who have like post-operative healing. The principles can be applied to rehab, but you wanna be careful not to overdo anything, especially if you've had a surgery or an injury. You wanna respect that healing time.
Yeah, I totally agree. So disclaimer, obviously, if you have previous injuries, might be a good time to come chat with one of us before starting something like this. Next question, would you consider swimming to be both aerobic and muscle strengthening?
Yeah.
All right. So I'll go back to that graph a little bit, if you can imagine it. So I would consider that predominantly aerobic, because you get your heart rate up doing that, and you're using all of your muscles. But if you think about that graph, when you're doing a resisted movement, when you're doing a resisted movement, which is essentially your arms swinging through the water, your legs kicking the resistance of the water, those require muscle strength. So you're going to improve your strength to a degree, but predominantly your endurance. So will you be able to lift? If you only swim, maybe you won't be able to lift a lot more weight, but you might be able to lift a little more weight than someone who's not swimming.
Amazing. These next 2 questions kind of go together, talking about stretching before and after a workout. So could you guys just talk about the results of not stretching before an exercise, or maybe the why behind stretching before and after an exercise?
Yeah, I mean, what I explain to some of my patients is just that if you just, as Eric was kind of explaining, if you just go all of a sudden from 0 to running, your muscles aren't used to that. They're not warmed up. They don't have like that excess blood flowing through them. They're tight, they're stiff, they're not extensible. So it's, we talk a lot about dynamic warm-ups a lot, but just doing some sort of warm-up and gradually increasing the load is really important to get your muscles ready for it, to really prevent injury. So that's what I think is the most important part about that.
Yeah, not to, and it was in no means to say stretching is bad in any sense, because it definitely is not. But some people don't like stretching, and they muscle through it because they feel like they need to. And that was the point that I was trying to make, is that you don't have to, there are other ways to warm up if you don't want to stretch. So stretching before and after exercise isn't a bad thing. It's a good thing. But you want to make sure that's what you want to do.
And then in terms of the cool down, what's the why behind stretching afterwards?
So cool down, again, is person dependent. It's similar to the fact that you don't want to jump right into an exercise. It's important to gradually bring your heart rate down, let your muscles relax a little bit, and give them a light stimulus before you just kind of hop in the shower.
Amazing. All right, I think we've got one more question. So what do you think about walking in place when weather doesn't permit walking outdoors? Does it have the same effect?
I personally think whatever you can do to, if you can't go outside because it's raining and the option is walking in place at home, absolutely. I think sometimes too, walking outside or walking in different like terrains, whether it's like a sidewalk or a curb, that can give your balance. We have this word called proprioception. It's your body's ability to understand where it is in space. And so several different things. I mean, if you're out walking outside, your body has to react a little bit different than it would just being kind of like static marching. But that's an exercise that I do with some of my patients that really helps challenge their balance a little bit if they're not comfortable even standing, doing it a little slower. And like you can do it faster to get your heart rate up a little bit. All the same principles. Your muscles are working similarly.
And I remembered a news story back, I guess, over a year ago. There was I believe it was someone in either France or Italy that had about a 10-foot wide balcony and ran back and forth. I don't remember how many times to run a marathon, because this was when the country was locked down, so they could only exercise inside. So you're limited only by what you will allow yourself to do. So run a marathon on your balcony, walk in place, run in place. But I thought that was an interesting, definitely an interesting type of person.
Yes, I'm sure that the neighbors are very confused. Amazing. Well, that was it for our questions. We hope that today's talk was valuable and that you understand more about exercise prescription. If we didn't get to your question, we'll do our best to reach out to you directly. But as a reminder, thank you to our presenters. We had Eric Finkelstein and Michelle Dearwater. Feel free to jot their contact information down so you can contact them directly with any questions, or if you want to schedule an appointment. They clearly know their stuff. And our Q&A moderator was Joe Lacerdo, clinical director at 84th Street. Feel free to reach out. Yeah, feel free to reach out to him as well, depending on where you are in the city. We have telehealth as well if you're not in the city. You can reach out with any questions and we'd be happy to facilitate getting you set up with one of our therapists. And I'm Kathleen. You can also reach out to me as well. At Spear, we treat an array of conditions from head to toe. As a reminder, we're open for both in-person as well as telehealth sessions. So if you feel like you could benefit from some individualized guidance and treatment, don't hesitate to reach out to any one of us individually. We'll personally coordinate you to be set up with someone on the team for an evaluation. And then lastly, at Spear, we'll be continuing to host webinars throughout the rest of 2021, covering a variety of topics. So we look forward to seeing you there. Please follow us on social media and check your inboxes to learn more about what's upcoming. And thank you so much for spending time with us today. We hope you enjoyed the webinar and we wish you all the best.